Tonight, we are exploring the hidden darkness behind Horcruxes, the magic that should not exist. Settle in wherever you are, let the noise of the day drift a little farther away, and allow yourself to wander through one of the most unsettling corners of the wizarding world. If you have listened to these stories before, you might tell us how many evenings you have spent traveling through magical history with us. And if this is your first journey, simply think of it as Night 1. Now, as the castle sleeps and the corridors grow quiet, follow the light of a single candle into a place that very few witches and wizards were ever meant to see. The flame burns weakly inside a stone chamber, deep beneath the earth. The air smells faintly of dust, old parchment, and damp rock. Somewhere beyond the reach of the candlelight sits a table scattered with objects that should not belong together. A cracked ring bearing the symbol of the Peverils, a silver locket engraved with a serpent, a small golden cup whose surface catches the trembling light. In the silence, a whispered spell breaks the darkness. A life has ended somewhere far away, yet another life refuses to end. This contradiction lies at the heart of the Horcrux, and for centuries it stood as one of the most terrible secrets in magical history. Why did the wizarding world fear even the word Horcrux? The answer begins not with Voldemort, but with knowledge itself. In 1997, while Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger searched desperately for the fragments of Voldemort's soul, Hermione revealed that she had secretly summoned a book from Albus Dumbledore's office before leaving Hogwarts. The book was called Secrets of the Darkest Art. Unlike ordinary textbooks found in the Hogwarts library, this volume had been removed from student access because it contained information about magic considered exceptionally dangerous. Hermione explained that she had discovered the meaning of Horcruxes there, learning enough to understand their purpose while refusing to repeat the details aloud. Even among friends standing together in the middle of a war, the subject carried a weight that made conversation falter. The existence of that book creates a curious mystery. Hogwarts was founded around the 10th century by Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin, and over the centuries its library accumulated thousands of magical texts. Yet if Horcruxes represented the darkest violation of magical law and morality, why preserve instructions describing them at all? Dumbledore never destroyed the book. Instead, he hid it. The distinction matters. Throughout his life, Dumbledore believed knowledge itself was not evil, though he understood that certain knowledge demanded extraordinary responsibility. A dangerous spell could save a life in one context and destroy it in another. A record of forbidden magic allowed future generations to recognize and oppose it. Perhaps that was why the book remained locked away rather than burned. Many years earlier, another student had discovered the same information. His name was Tom Marvolo Riddle. During his 6th year at Hogwarts, sometime around 1943, Riddle visited Professor Horace Slughorn and asked a question that left even the experienced potions master visibly uncomfortable. The conversation seemed academic on the surface. Riddle spoke politely. He framed the topic as intellectual curiosity. Yet beneath the calm voice stood a teenager already connected to multiple murders, including those committed at Hogwarts through the Chamber of Secrets. What Slughorn remembered afterward would become one of the most important memories in the entire series. When Harry Potter finally obtained the true memory in 1996, he witnessed a young Tom Riddle sitting in Slughorn's office among crystal glasses and candied pineapple. Riddle asked whether it would be possible to split the soul. Slughorn reluctantly admitted that it was. Then came the question that transformed discomfort into horror. Riddle did not ask about creating a single Horcrux. He asked about creating 7. The professor's reaction was immediate. He described the idea as terrible, unnatural, beyond anything he had ever heard proposed by a student. Yet even then, Slughorn did not fully understand what he was witnessing. He believed he was answering a theoretical question. In reality, Voldemort's future was already taking shape before him. Why was the number 7 so important to Tom Riddle? In wizarding culture, 7 carries unusual significance. Harry Potter begins school at age 11 and attends 7 years at Hogwarts. There are 7 players on a Quidditch team. Magical traditions repeatedly treat 7 as a number associated with completeness and power. Dumbledore later explained that Voldemort viewed 7 as the most magically powerful number. By dividing his soul into 7 parts, he believed he could achieve a form of perfection. What is striking is how mathematical his thinking became. He approached immortality not as a mystery of life and death, but as a problem to be solved through calculation. Yet even before discussing 7 Horcruxes, Slughorn revealed the principle that makes their existence so horrifying. A Horcrux can only be created after murder. This was not merely a practical requirement. According to wizarding understanding, murder damages the soul itself. The act tears it apart. Slughorn spoke of the soul almost as though it were a living structure capable of suffering wounds. Wizards could commit theft, deception, cruelty, or countless other wrongs without producing the same effect. Murder occupied a unique place. It shattered something fundamental within the person who committed it. This raises one of the deepest mysteries in all of Harry Potter lore. Why does murder tear the soul while other acts do not? Rowling never provides a scientific explanation. The books instead treat it as a natural law woven into the structure of existence. A human soul is meant to remain whole. Taking innocent life violates that order so completely that the damage echoes inward. Dumbledore later described Voldemort as a man who repeatedly attacked his own soul in pursuit of power. Each murder created an opening. Each Horcrux widened the wound. What Voldemort called immortality looked increasingly like self-destruction. Long before Harry heard these explanations, Voldemort himself displayed an unusual fear of death. At Wool's orphanage in London during the late 1930s, the young Tom Riddle already demonstrated a desire for control over other people. He collected trophies from those he frightened. He spoke calmly about hurting others. He showed no interest in friendship. When Albus Dumbledore visited him in 1938 to explain that he was a wizard, Tom's questions focused not on wonder or discovery, but on power. He wanted to know whether magic could make him special, whether it could make him stronger than everyone else, whether it could place him beyond ordinary limits. Seen from that perspective, the later obsession with Horcruxes feels less like a sudden corruption and more like a destination. The boy who feared weakness became the young man who feared death. The student who sought mastery over classmates became the dark wizard who sought mastery over mortality itself. By the time he sat across from Horace Slughorn in that comfortable office at Hogwarts, listening to the crackle of the fire and watching candlelight flicker across shelves of potion ingredients, he had already begun moving toward a choice that almost no wizard in history would dare consider. The question was no longer whether he would damage his soul. The question was how many times he intended to do it. And so the candle continues to burn in the darkness. Its light touches old stone walls and forbidden pages filled with knowledge that should never have been needed. Somewhere in the silence rests a book hidden from students, a memory hidden from a headmaster, and a secret hidden inside the soul of a young man named Tom Riddle. The deeper mystery still waits ahead. If murder tears the soul apart, what exactly must a wizard do to take that broken fragment and imprison it inside an object? Even among the darkest records of magical history, that answer remained hidden. Why was the actual process of creating a Horcrux hidden even from readers who learned almost every other secret in the wizarding world? The answer begins with a rare moment when information comes not from a character inside the story, but from J.K. Rowling herself. Over the years, Rowling explained that the creation of a Horcrux involved details too disturbing to place directly into the books. She revealed that murder alone was not enough. Murder damaged the soul, but something else had to happen afterward. That second step was never described. At one point, Rowling recalled discussing the process with her editor and receiving a reaction of visible revulsion. In a fictional world that contains dementors feeding on happiness, inferi animated from corpses, and the Cruciatus curse causing unbearable pain, the creator of the series still considered the Horcrux ritual uniquely horrifying. That absence of explanation creates a strange silence at the center of Harry Potter lore. Readers know the ingredients around the ritual. They know a murder must occur. They know the soul must already be torn. They know a fragment is somehow separated and attached to a chosen vessel. Yet the crucial moment remains hidden behind a curtain. The books treat the missing detail almost like an ancient wound that should not be examined too closely. Dumbledore never describes it. Slughorn never describes it. Even Voldemort never speaks openly about it. The silence itself becomes part of the horror. A popular fan theory suggests that the ritual requires an act of profound self-degradation beyond murder itself, something symbolically representing the rejection of ordinary humanity. Another theory proposes that the process involves forcing the damaged soul fragment out through dark magic that violently distorts both body and spirit. Neither theory is canon. What is canon is the effect. Every known creator of a Horcrux emerges from the process less human than before. The ritual does not merely preserve life, it changes the person who performs it. Whatever happens in that hidden moment leaves scars deeper than physical wounds. The wizarding world contains many dangerous spells that are taught, regulated, or studied. Even the unforgivable curses are widely understood by trained witches and wizards. A Horcrux stands apart. It occupies a category of magic so taboo that discussion itself becomes rare. During Harry's education at Hogwarts, he studies dragons, giant spiders, boggarts, werewolves, curses, hexes, jinxes, and magical creatures capable of killing. Yet the word Horcrux never appears in ordinary lessons. Entire generations pass through the castle without hearing it spoken. The secrecy surrounding the subject is almost unprecedented. Why did the first known Horcrux creator emerge from ancient Greece rather than medieval Britain or some forgotten corner of Europe? To answer that question, the story travels far beyond Hogwarts and even beyond the founding of the Ministry of Magic. The earliest known creator of a Horcrux was a dark wizard named Herpo the Foul. He lived in ancient Greece, centuries before most of the institutions familiar to modern witches and wizards existed. Historical records describe him as brilliant, cruel, and endlessly fascinated by forbidden magical experimentation. His reputation survived across generations not because of one dark achievement, but because of several. Herpo is remembered as the first known wizard to breed a basilisk. According to magical tradition, he discovered that a chicken egg hatched beneath a toad would produce the monstrous serpent. The result was a creature capable of killing with a glance and petrifying those who met its gaze indirectly. Centuries later, Salazar Slytherin would place a basilisk beneath Hogwarts, but the creature itself traced its origins back to Herpo's experiments. That fact alone secured his place among the darkest figures in magical history. Yet even the basilisk was not his most infamous legacy. The same ancient sources that credit Herpo with creating the first basilisk also identify him as the first known creator of a Horcrux. Notice the wording carefully. First known creator. The distinction leaves room for mystery. Magical history is incomplete. Entire civilizations rose and vanished before detailed wizarding records existed. Knowledge disappeared during wars, persecutions, and centuries of secrecy. Some scholars inside the wizarding world have wondered whether Herpo invented the Horcrux or merely rediscovered a secret already lost to time. The books never answer that question. Imagine the significance of that possibility. If Herpo truly invented the Horcrux, then a single wizard fundamentally altered the relationship between magic and mortality. He found a way to continue existing after destruction by violating the natural boundaries of life and death. If, on the other hand, he inherited the knowledge from an older source, then the darkness reaches even deeper into the past than recorded history can reveal. Either possibility feels unsettling. One suggests unprecedented evil. The other suggests forgotten generations experimenting with horrors long before Hogwarts existed. What makes Herpo especially fascinating is that his known achievements reveal a consistent pattern. The basilisk represented control over a deadly creature. The Horcrux represented resistance to death itself. Neither accomplishment sought harmony with magical nature. Both attempted domination. Throughout Harry Potter lore, the greatest dark wizards often share this impulse. They do not ask what limits exist. They ask how those limits can be broken. Herpo appears as one of the earliest examples of that mindset, a wizard who viewed the world as material to reshape regardless of consequence. By the time modern magical society emerged, the consequences were already visible. The Ministry of Magic classified basilisk breeding as illegal. Dark magic became increasingly regulated. Certain books vanished into restricted collections. Yet traces of ancient knowledge endured. Secrets rarely disappear completely in the wizarding world. A dangerous spell survives in a forgotten manuscript. A cursed object remains hidden in a family vault. A memory lingers inside a pensive. The path from Herpo the Foul to Lord Voldemort spans centuries. but it never truly breaks. And this leads to another troubling question. If Herpo created the first Horcrux, why did so few dark wizards follow his example? History contains many ambitious figures. Gellert Grindelwald sought power over the wizarding and muggle worlds. Countless unnamed dark witches and wizards pursued domination, revenge, or immortality, yet Horcruxes remained extraordinarily rare. The explanation may be simple. Even among practitioners of dark magic, there are lines few are willing to cross. Herpo crossed one. Centuries later, Tom Riddle would decide to cross it again. And unlike Herpo, he would not stop at one fragment of soul. Why did Tom Riddle become obsessed with the number 7 when a single Horcrux was already enough to survive death? The question troubled Albus Dumbledore long before Harry Potter fully understood its significance. By the time Riddle approached Horace Slughorn in the early 1940s, he was not searching for a method of survival. He had already found one. What fascinated him was scale. He wanted to know whether the soul could be divided repeatedly. He wanted to know whether immortality could be strengthened, refined, perfected. In that moment, the future Dark Lord revealed something important about himself. He did not merely wish to escape death. He wanted to surpass every wizard who had come before him. The magical importance of 7 appears throughout wizarding culture. Hogwarts education lasts 7 years. There are 7 secret passages known to the Marauder's Map during Harry's time at school. Ancient magical traditions repeatedly assign unusual significance to the number. Dumbledore later explained that Voldemort regarded 7 as the most powerfully magical number. To many witches and wizards, this belief would have remained a harmless piece of folklore. To Tom Riddle, it became a blueprint. He imagined a soul divided into 7 parts, creating what he believed would be the strongest possible barrier between himself and mortality. Yet there is a strange contradiction hidden inside Voldemort's logic. Every Horcrux required the soul to be damaged again. Each division weakened the original whole. The process increased his protection while simultaneously destroying the very thing being protected. Dumbledore recognized this contradiction immediately. He understood that Voldemort viewed the soul as a tool rather than a sacred part of human existence. The more fragments he created, the further he drifted from ordinary humanity. Ironically, the quest for immortality forced him into a state that resembled spiritual decay. The chosen murders reveal how carefully Voldemort planned his design. Myrtle Warren, later known as Moaning Myrtle, died in June 1943 inside a first-floor bathroom at Hogwarts after encountering the basilisk of the Chamber of Secrets. According to Dumbledore's deductions, her death was used to create Tom Riddle's diary, the first Horcrux. The object itself was revealing. Rather than choosing a random stone or forgotten trinket, Riddle selected something personal. The diary preserved not merely a soul fragment, but a version of his 16-year-old self, capable of speaking, thinking, and manipulating others decades later. Why did Voldemort consistently choose meaningful objects instead of ordinary ones? A wizard seeking perfect secrecy could hide a Horcrux inside a pebble and drop it into the ocean. Such an object would be nearly impossible to locate. Yet Voldemort never followed that path. His choices reflected pride as much as caution. He believed his soul fragments deserved worthy containers. He wanted relics connected to power, prestige, magical history, and his own identity. The Horcruxes became monuments as much as safeguards. One of the clearest examples was Marvolo Gaunt's ring. The ring belonged to Voldemort's maternal family, descendants of Salazar Slytherin through the Gaunt bloodline. In the summer of 1943, shortly after leaving Hogwarts, Tom Riddle traveled to Little Hangleton and murdered his father, Tom Riddle Sr., along with his paternal grandparents. The murders were blamed on Morphin Gaunt through manipulated memories. Dumbledore later concluded that the ring became Voldemort's second Horcrux. The object symbolized both revenge and lineage, allowing Riddle to celebrate his connection to Slytherin while erasing the Muggle family he despised. The ring carried an additional secret, unknown even to Voldemort. Set within it was the Resurrection Stone, one of the three legendary Deathly Hallows described in the Tale of the Three Brothers. This creates one of the most fascinating coincidences in the series. Voldemort possessed one of the Deathly Hallows for years without recognizing its true identity. He saw only the Gaunt heirloom and its connection to Slytherin. The object's deeper significance escaped him completely. Even in his pursuit of immortality, he overlooked a different path through the mystery of death. Another Horcrux would eventually become Helga Hufflepuff's cup. The cup originally belonged to one of the 4 Hogwarts founders and passed through generations before reaching Hepzibah Smith, an elderly witch famous for collecting rare magical treasures. In the late 1940s, while working at Borgin and Burke's, Tom Riddle visited Hepzibah and learned about her collection. She proudly showed him both Hufflepuff's cup and Salazar Slytherin's locket. 2 days later, she was dead, poisoned through a crime arranged by Riddle and blamed on her house elf, Hokey. The theft marked another step in his transformation from ambitious wizard into something far darker. Notice how often Hogwarts appears at the center of these decisions. Even after graduation, Voldemort remained obsessed with the school. He sought employment there. He hid magical artifacts connected to its founders. He returned repeatedly throughout his life. Many dark wizards desire kingdoms, armies, or political power. Voldemort desired Hogwarts itself. The castle represented legitimacy. It represented magical greatness. Deep inside, the orphan from Wool's orphanage never stopped measuring himself against the institution that first revealed his extraordinary abilities. This obsession explains the theft of Ravenclaw's diadem as well. The diadem had vanished centuries earlier after Rowena Ravenclaw's daughter, Helena Ravenclaw, stole it. Helena fled to Albania, where she hid the artifact in a hollow tree. Centuries later, Tom Riddle learned its location directly from Helena's ghost, known at Hogwarts as the Grey Lady. Few students ever gained her trust. Riddle succeeded because he combined charm, intelligence, and relentless curiosity. Once again, he transformed a piece of Hogwarts history into a container for his damaged soul. Each Horcrux tells a story about what Voldemort valued. The diary celebrated his younger self. The ring honored his bloodline. The cup and diadem connected him to Hogwarts founders. These were not random choices made by a practical immortal. They were the choices of a man constructing a myth about himself. Every object reflected an aspect of the identity he wanted preserved forever. Yet another mystery remains ahead. If these treasures were meant to protect him, why did they also seem capable of influencing the living, poisoning thoughts and shaping emotions long after their creator had left them behind. Why did Voldemort's Horcruxes seem to do far more than simply store fragments of a soul? By the time Harry, Ron, and Hermione encountered several of them directly, a disturbing pattern had become impossible to ignore. The diary spoke. The locket manipulated emotions. The ring carried a deadly curse. These objects behaved less like containers and more like living extensions of their creator. Dumbledore described Horcruxes as soul fragments housed outside the body, but the evidence suggested something deeper. A piece of Voldemort was not merely preserved within them, it remained active. The clearest example appeared during Harry's second year at Hogwarts in 1992 to 1993. At first glance, Tom Riddle's diary seemed ordinary. It looked like a blank black notebook purchased from a shop. When Ginny Weasley began writing in it, however, words appeared in response. Conversations formed across its pages. The diary listened. It sympathized. It encouraged trust. Over time, Ginny poured increasingly personal thoughts into the object, unaware that she was feeding strength to a preserved version of 16-year-old Tom Riddle. What makes the diary remarkable is how much independence it displayed. The memory preserved inside it did not simply repeat old conversations. It learned from new information. It manipulated events. It extracted memories from Ginny and used them to rebuild itself. By the climax of the school year, Harry encountered a version of Tom Riddle capable of independent thought and action within the Chamber of Secrets. This was not merely a magical recording. It was something far closer to a living personality. The soul fragment had retained enough identity to function almost as a separate being. The consequences for Ginny were devastating. During the school year, she suffered exhaustion, memory loss, and increasing fear. Objects appeared where they should not. Messages were written on castle walls in blood-red paint. Roosters were killed. Students were attacked and petrified. Each incident connected back to the Chamber of Secrets and the basilisk hidden beneath Hogwarts. Yet Ginny often remembered nothing. The diary had begun taking control. Through her, Tom Riddle reopened the chamber that he himself had first opened in 1943. Why was possession possible at all? The books never provide a complete explanation. A popular interpretation among readers is that the diary represented a unique experiment even among Horcruxes. Unlike later vessels designed primarily for concealment, the diary seems intended to act. Lucius Malfoy eventually planted it among Ginny's belongings, hoping to discredit Arthur Weasley and damage Hogwarts. Yet Voldemort's original purpose appears broader. The diary could reopen the Chamber of Secrets and continue Tom Riddle's unfinished work. It functioned almost like an heir prepared to carry on his legacy. The destruction of the diary revealed another crucial truth. In May 1993, Harry stabbed it with a basilisk fang inside the Chamber of Secrets. Black ink erupted from the pages like blood. The preserved version of Tom Riddle screamed as the Horcrux died. Dumbledore later explained that a Horcrux could only be destroyed through damage so severe that magical repair became impossible. Ordinary breakage was insufficient. Basilisk venom, among the most destructive substances known to wizard kind, succeeded because its magical corruption overwhelmed the protection surrounding the soul fragment. Years later, another Horcrux demonstrated a different form of influence. During the hunt for Voldemort's soul fragments in 1997, Harry, Ron, and Hermione carried Salazar Slytherin's locket through forests, rivers, and isolated campsites across Britain. The object exerted a subtle pressure almost immediately. Tempers shortened, doubts grew louder. Resentments that normally remained hidden drifted toward the surface. The trio endured months of hardship, but the locket seemed to magnify every fear and frustration they already carried inside themselves. Ron Weasley suffered, most visibly. He worried constantly about his family. News from the Wizarding War reached them only in fragments. Bill and Fleur's cottage remained far away. Fred, George, Ginny, Molly, and Arthur lived under growing danger. Ron's anxieties were real long before he touched the locket. Yet when he wore it, those fears intensified until they became overwhelming. Hunger, exhaustion, jealousy, and uncertainty combined into a storm of emotion. Eventually, he abandoned Harry and Hermione altogether, a decision he regretted almost immediately. When Ron returned weeks later and helped Harry retrieve the sword of Gryffindor from a frozen forest pool, the locket revealed its full power. Harry opened it using Parseltongue. Dark smoke emerged. Then came visions. The Horcrux projected twisted versions of Harry and Hermione, speaking directly to Ron's insecurities. It mocked his fears of inadequacy. It exploited years of comparison to Harry's fame and Hermione's brilliance. The scene demonstrates something important about Horcruxes. They do not create weakness from nothing. They identify existing wounds and press upon them until they widen. The cave protecting the locket before its theft from Voldemort offers another glimpse into the nature of these objects. Hidden in a sea cave near the village where Tom Riddle once tormented fellow orphans, the Horcrux rested behind layers of magical defenses. Dumbledore and Harry reached it only after crossing an underground lake filled with inferi. Then Dumbledore was forced to drink a potion causing intense suffering, reliving terrible memories while begging for relief. The protections surrounding the Horcrux were not practical defenses alone. They were psychological weapons designed to break intruders from within. This recurring pattern is difficult to ignore. Again and again, Horcruxes interact with thoughts, fears, desires, and memories. They are not passive treasures buried underground. They reach outward, they influence, they resist destruction. Whether through Ginny's possession, Ron's despair, or the agony imposed upon Dumbledore in the cave, the soul fragments behave almost like organisms struggling to survive. And if a soul repeatedly exists in that damaged state for decades, another question naturally follows. What effect does such violence inflict upon the Creator himself? By the end of his life, Lord Voldemort barely resembled the handsome young Tom Riddle who first entered Hogwarts. Why did Lord Voldemort gradually lose the appearance of a human being long before his final defeat? The transformation did not happen overnight. Photographs and memories preserved throughout the series reveal a slow progression stretching across decades. When Albus Dumbledore first met Tom Riddle at Wool's Orphanage in 1938, he was a thin, dark-haired boy with sharp features and unusually intense eyes. During his years at Hogwarts, classmates described him as handsome, intelligent, and remarkably charismatic. Yet by the time Harry Potter faced him in the graveyard of Little Hangleton in June 1995, Almost nothing of that young man remained. Dumbledore noticed the changes early. In memories collected during Harry's 6th year, Tom Riddle's appearance becomes increasingly unsettling with each passing decade. When he returned to Hogwarts after working at Borgin and Burke's, seeking the defense against the dark arts position from Headmaster Armando Dippet, he still looked largely human. Years later, when he visited Albus Dumbledore to request the same post, the transformation was unmistakable. His face appeared waxy and distorted. His eyes had acquired a strange, reddish cast. Something fundamental seemed wrong even before his complete physical collapse after the First Wizarding War. The books never provide a precise magical formula connecting Horcrux creation to physical appearance. However, Dumbledore repeatedly suggests that severe damage to the soul leaves visible consequences. Voldemort treated the soul as something disposable, dividing it again and again in pursuit of immortality. Most witches and wizards pass through life with a single intact soul. Voldemort fragmented his repeatedly through murder and dark ritual. The result appears to have reshaped not only his spirit, but eventually his body. In Harry Potter, body and soul are never entirely separate things. The symbolism becomes even more striking when compared to other characters. Harry survives immense suffering without losing his humanity. Sirius Black spends 12 years in Azkaban and emerges gaunt but recognizably himself. Remus Lupin endures the pain of lycanthropy for decades, yet remains compassionate and self-aware. Voldemort alone becomes increasingly inhuman as his power grows. The contrast feels deliberate. His greatest achievements in dark magic coincide with the erosion of qualities that make him human in the first place. One event accelerated that process dramatically. On the night of October 31st, 1981, Voldemort entered the Potter home in Godric's Hollow, intending to murder a 15-month-old Harry Potter. He had already killed James Potter. Lily Potter refused to step aside. When Voldemort cast the killing curse at Harry, Lily's sacrificial protection caused the curse to rebound. Voldemort's body was destroyed instantly, yet because of his Horcruxes, he did not truly die. The condition in which he existed afterward remains one of the strangest states described in the series. For nearly 14 years, Voldemort survived as something less than a ghost. He later explained to Harry that he had been stripped of his body and reduced to a shadow of life. He could possess animals briefly. He could influence weak-minded individuals, yet he lacked a stable physical form. During this period, he hid in remote forests and abandoned places, existing through sheer force of will and the protection granted by his Horcruxes. His encounter with Professor Quirrell during the 1991 to 1992 school year revealed just how diminished he had become. Quirrell encountered Voldemort while traveling in Albania, where remnants of the Dark Lord's presence lingered after his defeat. Through persuasion, manipulation, and fear, Voldemort gained control over the professor. Eventually, he attached himself directly to Quirrell's body. When Harry met Quirrell beneath Hogwarts during the search for the Philosopher's Stone, Voldemort's face emerged grotesquely from the back of the professor's head. The image remains one of the most disturbing in the series because it illustrates a soul desperate for a body, but unable to sustain one independently. Why did Voldemort not simply create a new body immediately? The answer reveals another limitation of Horcruxes. They prevent complete death, but they do not restore physical life automatically. A Horcrux anchors existence. It does not heal destruction. Voldemort still required followers, rituals, magical ingredients, an extraordinary effort to regain a proper body. The protection he had created proved incomplete. He had escaped death. He had not escaped vulnerability. The restoration ritual in the Little Hangleton graveyard during June 1995 demonstrates this perfectly. Peter Pettigrew prepared a cauldron according to Voldemort's instructions. Bone from Tom Riddle, Senior's grave, was taken by force. Flesh from Pettigrew's own hand was sacrificed willingly. Blood from Harry Potter was taken unwillingly. When these ingredients combined, Voldemort emerged once again in physical form. Yet the body that rose from the cauldron did not resemble the handsome Hogwarts prefect remembered by old classmates. Harry's description is precise and unsettling. Voldemort appeared pale as a skull. His face was flat and serpentine. Slits replaced a normal nose. His eyes glowed red beneath narrow pupils resembling those of a snake. The connection to Salazar, Slytherin, and Parseltongue is obvious, but another interpretation runs beneath the symbolism. Voldemort had spent decades sacrificing pieces of his soul to preserve himself. When he finally returned, the body reflected the condition of the spirit inside it. He looked less like a man and more like a creature assembled around damaged fragments. This idea becomes especially haunting near the end of the series. During Harry's experience at King's Cross, after being struck by the Killing Curse in 1998, he encounters a small, flayed creature lying beneath a bench. The being whimpers helplessly. Dumbledore explains that it is something Harry cannot help. Most readers interpret it as the mutilated fragment of Voldemort's soul attached to Harry. The image provides perhaps the clearest glimpse of what repeated soul destruction ultimately creates. Not power, not immortality, not transcendence, only a damaged remnant incapable of healing itself. And yet Voldemort never saw the tragedy. He viewed each Horcrux as evidence of victory. He measured success by survival, not by wholeness. The irony is profound. The wizard who feared death more than anyone else spent his life inflicting wounds upon the very part of himself that made life meaningful. But among all the Horcruxes he created, one stands apart from the others. It was never planned, never chosen, and never understood by Voldemort himself. The most important Horcrux in history came into existence entirely by accident. How did the most important Horcrux in history come into existence without anyone intending to create it? Every known Horcrux before Harry Potter followed a deliberate pattern. A murder occurred. A soul was damaged. A chosen object received the fragment through a dark magical process. Yet on the night of October 31st, 1981, something happened that violated even Voldemort's own understanding of Horcrux magic. No ritual was performed, no vessel was selected, no conscious decision was made, and still, a fragment of soul found a new home. The story begins in the village of Godric's Hollow. Earlier that year, Sybil Trelawney delivered a prophecy to Albus Dumbledore while interviewing for the divination position at the Hog's Head Inn. The prophecy spoke of a child born at the end of July who would possess the power to defeat the Dark Lord. Severus Snape overheard part of it and carried the information to Voldemort. Believing the prophecy referred to Harry Potter, Voldemort marked the infant as a threat. What followed would alter the course of magical history. James and Lily Potter had gone into hiding under the protection of the Fidelius charm. Their secret keeper was ultimately Peter Pettigrew, who betrayed their location to Voldemort. On Halloween night, Voldemort entered the cottage. James Potter was killed first. Lily Potter remained between Voldemort and her son despite repeated demands that she step aside. Her refusal mattered because of a choice Voldemort himself had made. At Severus Snape's request, he had been willing to spare Lily. When she knowingly sacrificed herself instead, ancient protective magic came into effect. The protection created by Lily's sacrifice occupies a unique place in wizarding lore. Dumbledore later explained that it was old magic, powerful and often overlooked by wizards obsessed with more dramatic forms of spellcraft. Lily's choice generated a protection rooted in love rather than technique. When Voldemort cast the killing curse at Harry, the curse rebounded. His body was destroyed. The house was shattered, yet Harry survived with only a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. Most witches and wizards believed that was the entire story. Even Dumbledore did not immediately understand everything that had happened. The crucial detail emerged years later. By 1981, Voldemort had already divided his soul repeatedly. The instability had become extreme. Dumbledore eventually concluded that Voldemort's soul was so damaged that when his body was destroyed, a fragment broke away and attached itself to the nearest living being. That living being happened to be Harry Potter. Notice how extraordinary this situation truly was. Horcruxes were supposed to require intention. Harry became one without intention. Horcruxes were usually hidden objects designed to remain undiscovered. Harry grew up among Muggles and attended Hogwarts openly. Horcruxes were normally lifeless containers. Harry possessed thoughts, emotions, choices, and a complete soul of his own. The accidental Horcrux did not fit the established pattern. It existed because circumstances no dark wizard had ever anticipated converged in a single moment. The consequences appeared slowly across Harry's life. During his first visit to Hogwarts in 1991, the Sorting Hat considered placing him in Slytherin. The hat sensed qualities associated with Salazar Slytherin and noted that Harry could achieve greatness there. Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue emerged later, surprising even him. In the wizarding world, the language of snakes is rare and strongly associated with descendants of Slytherin. Harry had no known connection to that bloodline, yet a fragment of Voldemort's soul carried the ability with it. The connection deepened as Voldemort regained strength. Throughout Harry's 4th, 5th, and 6th years, dreams and visions increasingly linked the two. Harry witnessed events through Voldemort's perspective. He saw the attack on Arthur Weasley in the Department of Mysteries corridor. He experienced flashes of the Dark Lord's emotions: anger, satisfaction, curiosity, and hatred sometimes crossed the boundary between them. Dumbledore eventually realized that Harry's mind and Voldemort's mind had become connected through the soul fragment neither of them fully understood. Why did Voldemort never recognize what had happened? The answer reveals one of his greatest weaknesses. Throughout the series, Voldemort consistently underestimates forms of magic he considers unimportant. He dismisses love, he dismisses friendship, he dismisses sacrifice. Because he cannot understand these forces, he often fails to anticipate their effects. He knew Horcruxes better than almost anyone alive, yet he never imagined that his own damaged soul could behave unpredictably when confronted by Lily Potter's protection. His knowledge of dark magic was immense, but it was incomplete. Dumbledore's understanding evolved gradually. During Harry's second year, the unusual behavior of the diary alarmed him. By the end of Harry's fourth year, after Voldemort used Harry's blood during the resurrection ritual in Little Hangleton, Dumbledore experienced a brief flash of triumph that Harry did not understand at the time. Years later, the reason became clear. Voldemort had unknowingly tethered Harry to life by incorporating Lily's protection into his own body. The connection between them had become even more complicated than either realized. The tragedy is that Harry spent years fearing what the connection meant. He worried that sharing Voldemort's thoughts made him similar to Voldemort. He worried that his anger, his Parseltongue ability, and his visions revealed something dark inside himself. Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and later Dumbledore all pushed back against that fear. The distinction was simple but profound. Harry and Voldemort shared certain abilities. They did not share choices. Harry repeatedly chose loyalty, compassion, and self-sacrifice. Voldemort repeatedly chose domination and fear. By the final year of the war, the truth could no longer be avoided. Harry himself was one of the Horcruxes. The realization transformed the entire conflict. Destroying Voldemort completely would require destroying the soul fragment hidden within Harry. For years, the heroes had searched for objects scattered across Britain. Now the final Horcrux hunt led somewhere far more difficult. It led directly into the heart of the boy, destined to defeat the Dark Lord. And that raises an even more painful question. If Horcruxes can only be destroyed through catastrophic damage, how could Harry survive the destruction of the fragment living inside him? How do you destroy a Horcrux when destroying it often seems as dangerous as the dark magic that created it? By the final years of the Second Wizarding War, Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Dumbledore faced a problem unlike any encountered by previous generations of witches and wizards. Finding the Horcruxes was difficult enough. Destroying them proved even harder. A Horcrux could not simply be smashed with a hammer or broken with an ordinary spell. The soul fragment hidden inside would survive unless the vessel itself suffered damage so severe that magical repair became impossible. This requirement transformed every Horcrux into a puzzle wrapped inside a weapon. The first successful destruction happened almost by accident beneath Hogwarts in May 1993. After entering the Chamber of Secrets and confronting the Basilisk, Harry Potter received help from Fawkes, Albus Dumbledore's Phoenix. Fawkes blinded the serpent and delivered the sorting hat. From the hat emerged the sword of Gryffindor. Harry drove a basilisk fang through Tom Riddle's diary, releasing black ink and destroying the soul fragment contained within. At the time, neither Harry nor Dumbledore fully understood the significance of what had happened. Basilisk venom occupies a special place in magical lore. According to Hermione Granger's research years later, very few substances are capable of destroying Horcruxes. Basilisk venom is one of them because almost nothing can neutralize its effects once it enters a magical object. The only known antidote is phoenix tears, and phoenixes are extraordinarily rare. When venom penetrates a Horcrux, the damage spreads beyond magical repair. The vessel dies, and with it dies the soul fragment hidden inside. What appears to be a simple poison becomes one of the most powerful anti-dark magic weapons in existence. This explains the growing importance of the Sword of Gryffindor. Goblin-made silver possesses unusual magical properties. As Griphook later explains, the sword absorbs only that which strengthens it. After Harry used it against the basilisk in the Chamber of Secrets, basilisk venom became permanently infused within the blade. The weapon emerged more dangerous than before. Years later, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione desperately needed a way to destroy Horcruxes, the sword had already become exactly the tool required. It was one of those rare moments when events separated by years suddenly fit together with remarkable precision. Why was Voldemort so confident that his Horcruxes would remain safe despite these vulnerabilities? Part of the answer lies in concealment. He believed nobody would ever identify all the Horcruxes, much less locate them. The ring remained hidden in the Gaunt Shack. The cup rested within Bellatrix Lestrange's vault at Gringotts. The diadem disappeared inside the vast clutter of the Room of Requirement. Nagini traveled constantly under Voldemort's protection. Most importantly, Voldemort never imagined that anyone would understand the full scope of his plan. His arrogance became part of the security system. The destruction of Marvolo Gaunt's ring demonstrates how dangerous Horcrux hunting could become. At some point before the events of Harry's 6th year, Dumbledore located the ring in the ruined Gaunt house. Recognizing it as both a Horcrux and the Resurrection Stone, he made a rare mistake. Tempted by the possibility of seeing his deceased family again, he placed the ring on his finger. Instantly, a powerful curse activated. The curse spread through his hand with lethal speed. Only the intervention of Severus Snape prevented immediate death. Dumbledore later admitted that this moment represented a lapse in judgment. For decades, he had preached caution regarding power and temptation, yet even he could not resist the lure of the Resurrection Stone. The incident reveals something important about Horcruxes. They do not merely defend themselves physically, they exploit desire. Voldemort's protections repeatedly target human weakness. The cave potion preyed upon fear and suffering. The ring preyed upon grief. The locket preyed upon insecurity. Again and again, the battle becomes psychological as much as magical. The destruction of Slytherin's locket required Ron Weasley to confront exactly that kind of attack. Deep within the Forest of Dean during the winter of 1997, Harry retrieved the Sword of Gryffindor from an icy pool. When the locket opened, the Horcrux unleashed visions designed specifically to torment Ron. Images of Harry and Hermione appeared before him, twisting his fears into cruel accusations. The Horcrux understood where to strike. It knew his jealousy, his loneliness, and his sense of inadequacy. Yet Ron overcame the attack and brought the sword down, destroying the locket despite everything it showed him. A different form of destruction arrived through one of the most dangerous spells ever created. During the Battle of Hogwarts in May 1998, Vincent Crabbe unleashed fiend fire inside the Room of Requirement. Unlike ordinary fire, fiend fire takes the shape of monstrous creatures and consumes nearly everything in its path. Even skilled dark wizards struggle to control it, Crabbe himself lost control almost immediately and died within the inferno he created. Amid the destruction, Ravenclaw's diadem was consumed, and the Horcrux within it perished. The fact that fiend fire can destroy Horcruxes highlights the extraordinary risks involved. The spell is so dangerous that using it often threatens the caster as much as the target. This pattern appears repeatedly throughout the hunt. Basilisk venom requires confronting one of the deadliest magical creatures alive. Fiendfire can annihilate entire structures and armies. Even the Sword of Gryffindor often demands direct combat. There is no safe path to destroying a Horcrux. Every method carries its own price. And then there was Nagini. Unlike the diary, ring, cup, locket, and diadem, Nagini was a living creature. She moved, hunted, and obeyed Voldemort's commands. By the final stages of the war, Voldemort surrounded her with magical protections because he finally understood that his enemies were targeting Horcruxes. Yet Nagini's destruction would require a different kind of courage, not hidden research, not ancient artifacts, not secret journeys. It would require someone standing in the middle of a battlefield and striking at the last remaining fragment of Voldemort's soul outside his own body. Before that could happen, however, another sacrifice had to take place, one that would force Harry Potter to walk willingly toward what seemed certain death. How could Harry Potter survive if he himself was one of Voldemort's Horcruxes? By the spring of 1998, this question stood at the center of everything. Dumbledore had known for some time that a fragment of Voldemort's soul lived within Harry. Severus Snape learned the truth later and reacted with visible shock when Dumbledore revealed it. In one of the memories Harry viewed inside the pensieve, Snape realized what appeared to be Dumbledore's plan. "So the boy must die?" he asked. The question hung in the air because, from every ordinary perspective, the answer seemed obvious. The revelation reached Harry during the Battle of Hogwarts. After viewing Snape's memories, he finally understood why Voldemort had always been connected to him. He understood the source of the visions, the Parseltongue ability, and the strange link between their minds. Most importantly, he understood that the soul fragment inside him had to be destroyed before Voldemort could truly die. Unlike previous Horcruxes, Harry could not hand himself to Ron with the Sword of Gryffindor. He could not stab himself with a basilisk fang. The only person capable of targeting the fragment directly was Voldemort himself. What follows is one of the most remarkable journeys in the entire series because almost nothing about it resembles a traditional victory. Harry leaves Hogwarts alone. The castle behind him is engulfed in battle. Giants move across the grounds. Spells flash through broken windows. Death Eaters clash with defenders in corridors and courtyards. Yet Harry walks away from the fighting rather than toward it. He heads into the Forbidden Forest, carrying a secret no one else fully understands. Before entering the forest, Harry uses the Resurrection Stone hidden inside the golden snitch that Dumbledore left him. The stone summons echoes of the dead. James Potter appears. Lily Potter appears. Sirius Black appears. Remus Lupin appears. None of them fight beside him. None of them change the outcome awaiting him. Instead, they accompany him during the final walk. Their presence transforms the scene from a military confrontation into something quieter and far more personal. Harry approaches death surrounded by the people whose love shaped his life. Why is this moment so important to understanding Horcruxes? Because it reveals the complete contrast between Harry and Voldemort. Voldemort creates Horcruxes to avoid death at any cost. Harry walks toward death willingly in order to save others. Voldemort sacrifices other people to preserve himself. Harry sacrifices himself to preserve other people. Throughout the series, these two approaches to mortality stand opposite one another. By entering the forest, Harry demonstrates a form of courage that Voldemort cannot even comprehend. When Harry reaches the clearing, Voldemort casts the killing curse. Green light flashes through the darkness. The curse strikes its target, yet what dies is not Harry's soul. Instead, the soul fragment attached to Harry is destroyed. Harry finds himself in a strange, dreamlike version of King's Cross Station. The station appears bright, empty, and peaceful. Nearby lies the small, flayed creature that represents the damaged fragment of Voldemort's soul. Dumbledore's appearance at King's Cross provides the explanation Harry desperately needs. Voldemort had made a critical mistake years earlier during his resurrection in the Little Hangleton graveyard. By taking Harry's blood into his own rebuilt body, he carried Lily Potter's sacrificial protection within himself. As long as Voldemort lived, that protection remained active. Harry's life became anchored to the world through Voldemort's own existence. In attempting to strengthen himself, Voldemort accidentally created the conditions that allowed Harry to survive. This solution reflects a recurring pattern in the series. Voldemort understands domination, fear, curses, and dark rituals. He repeatedly fails to understand sacrifice, loyalty, and love. Dumbledore recognizes this weakness long before Harry does. That brief flash of triumph Harry noticed after the graveyard resurrection now makes sense. Dumbledore realized that Voldemort had preserved a pathway back to life for Harry without ever recognizing what he had done. The Dark Lord's greatest knowledge of dark magic could not compensate for his blindness to other forms of power. Back in the physical world, Harry awakens among the dead and wounded. Narcissa Malfoy approaches to confirm whether he is alive. Her next decision changes the course of the war. Knowing that her son Draco remains somewhere inside Hogwarts, she asks Harry quietly whether Draco is alive. Harry answers truthfully. Narcissa then lies to Voldemort, claiming Harry is dead. Her choice has nothing to do with supporting Harry or opposing Voldemort. She simply wants to reach her son. Yet once again, personal love disrupts Voldemort's carefully constructed plans. As Harry is carried back toward Hogwarts, Voldemort believes victory is finally within reach. Unknown to him, however, another Horcrux has just been destroyed. The fragment hidden inside Harry is gone. Only Nagini remains. The circle that began decades earlier with Tom Riddle's experiments is rapidly closing. Years of murders, rituals, concealment, and obsession have narrowed to a single surviving vessel. The end approaches not through a secret spell or ancient prophecy, but through the collapse of Voldemort's own design. And yet one final mystery remains. If Horcruxes represent the ultimate attempt to defeat death, why do the books repeatedly place them beside other forms of immortality that seem far less corrupt? Nicolas Flamel lived for centuries through the Philosopher's Stone. The Peverell brothers appear in stories about conquering death. Even Dumbledore spent years fascinated by the Deathly Hallows. To understand why Horcruxes stand apart from all of them, we must look beyond the mechanics of dark magic and examine the deeper fear that drove Voldemort from the beginning. Why are Horcruxes treated as the darkest path to immortality when the wizarding world contains other ways to extend life? At first glance, the distinction is not obvious. Nicolas Flamel lived for centuries through the Philosopher's Stone. The Deathly Hallows became legendary because they promised mastery over death. Powerful magical healing can preserve life far beyond what Muggles consider possible. Yet throughout the Harry Potter series, Horcruxes occupy a category of horror all their own. The difference lies not in survival itself, but in the price demanded to achieve it. Consider Nicolas Flamel. By the time Harry arrived at Hogwarts in 1991, Flamel was already over 600 years old. Alongside his wife Perenelle, he used the Philosopher's Stone to produce the elixir of life. Unlike Horcruxes, the stone required no murders. No souls were torn apart. No innocent victims became stepping stones toward immortality. When the stone was ultimately destroyed to prevent Voldemort from obtaining it, Flamel accepted the end of his life with dignity. Dumbledore later remarked that to a well-organized mind, death is simply the next great adventure. That attitude would have been incomprehensible to Voldemort. From childhood onward, he treated death not as a natural boundary, but as an insult. At Wool's orphanage, he wanted power over the children around him. At Hogwarts, he sought knowledge beyond that of his classmates. As an adult, he pursued domination over both wizarding and Muggle worlds. The pattern remained consistent. Voldemort did not merely dislike limits, he could not tolerate them. Death represented the final limit, and therefore it became his greatest enemy. The tale of the three brothers offers an illuminating contrast. According to wizarding legend, Antioch, Cadmus, and Ignotus Peverell each received a gift from death itself. Antioch gained the Elder Wand, a weapon of unmatched power. Cadmus received the Resurrection Stone, capable of recalling echoes of the dead. Ignotus inherited the Invisibility Cloak, allowing him to evade death for many years. Yet the story's moral is often misunderstood. The first two brothers attempted to dominate death and suffered for it. Only Ignotus accepted mortality when his time finally came, greeting death as an old friend. Dumbledore found this lesson deeply meaningful. During his youth, he pursued power alongside Gellert Grindelwald and became fascinated by the Deathly Hallows. The death of his sister Ariana changed him profoundly. Decades later, he still felt temptation when confronted by the Resurrection Stone hidden within Marvolo Gaunt's ring. His mistake nearly killed him. Yet, unlike Voldemort, Dumbledore recognized the danger of that temptation. He understood that even noble motives could become destructive when driven by an inability to let go. This is what makes Horcruxes uniquely disturbing. A Horcrux does not merely preserve life, it requires the deliberate destruction of another life and the mutilation of one's own soul. The magic is built upon violation from beginning to end. The creator gains additional years of existence while becoming less whole with every step. The process cannot be separated from murder, because murder is the foundation upon which the entire structure rests. Other paths seek to extend life. Horcruxes seek to conquer death through spiritual self-destruction. Why then did Voldemort never recognize the trap? The answer may lie in how completely fear shaped his worldview. Throughout the series, Voldemort often appears fearless. He commands armies. He duels the greatest witches and wizards alive. He enters battles personally. Yet beneath all that confidence lies a profound terror. The very name he chose, Lord Voldemort, is widely believed to derive from a phrase suggesting flight from death. Whether intentional or not, the symbolism fits. Nearly every major decision he makes can be traced back to fear of mortality. A striking example appears during his search for the Elder Wand. By 1997, Voldemort believed the wand would guarantee victory. He hunted Gregorovitch, the famous wand maker. He murdered countless people in pursuit of information. He broke into Dumbledore's tomb and stole the wand itself. Yet even then, he misunderstood what he possessed. Like his earlier failure to recognize the Resurrection Stone, he focused entirely on power while overlooking deeper truths. The Elder Wand was never the secret to defeating death. It was simply another object onto which he projected his fears and ambitions. Meanwhile, Harry's journey moved in the opposite direction. The boy who once feared the Dementors because they forced him to relive painful memories gradually learned to face loss without being consumed by it. He mourned Cedric Diggory. He mourned Sirius Black. He mourned Albus Dumbledore, Dobby, Fred Weasley, Remus Lupin, Nymphadora Tonks, and many others. Each loss wounded him. None transformed him into Voldemort. Harry's strength emerged not from avoiding grief, but from carrying it while continuing forward. This contrast ultimately explains why Voldemort loses. His downfall is not caused solely by prophecy, wand lore, or battlefield mistakes. It begins much earlier, the moment he decides that preserving himself matters more than preserving his soul. Every Horcrux deepens that mistake. Every murder widens the damage. Every attempt to escape death pulls him farther from the qualities that make life worth protecting. By the end, he possesses extraordinary magical power, but almost nothing resembling inner peace. As dawn approaches over Hogwarts after the final battle, the great castle still stands. The Chamber of Secrets remains buried beneath its foundations. The Room of Requirement still hides centuries of forgotten objects. Deep caves, abandoned shacks, ancient vaults, and ruined manors still exist across the wizarding world, yet the Horcruxes are gone. The fragments have been destroyed. The long experiment that began with Herpo the Foul and reached its terrible peak with Lord Voldemort has finally ended. And somewhere in memory, far beneath stone walls and flickering shadows, a lone candle continues to burn beside forbidden pages. Quiet now, their lesson complete, illuminating the simple truth that the darkest magic was never the power to survive death, but the willingness to destroy the soul in order to do it. If you follow the story of Horcruxes all the way to its end, something unexpected emerges. At first, it appears to be a story about immortality. Ancient dark wizards seek it. Tom Riddle dedicates his life to it. Entire wars unfold because of it. Yet beneath the murders, the curses, the hidden chambers, and forgotten relics lies a different subject altogether. The true question is not how long a person can live. The true question is what remains of a person after every sacrifice has been made in the name of survival. Rowling's world returns to this idea again and again. Magic can change bodies, memories, appearances, even fate itself, but it cannot escape the consequences of choice. That is why Voldemort's downfall begins long before Harry Potter is born. It begins the moment he decides that the soul is something expendable. Every Horcrux rests upon that assumption. Every murder reinforces it. He believes identity can survive division, that power can compensate for damage, that existence alone is enough. Yet the deeper logic of the wizarding world quietly argues the opposite. A soul is not a possession like a wand or a vault of gold at Gringotts. It is the center from which every meaningful human connection grows. Once that center is repeatedly wounded, power becomes increasingly hollow. Notice how often the series places Voldemort beside characters who have suffered terrible loss and yet remain whole. Harry loses his parents before he can remember them. Sirius Black loses 12 years of freedom. Remus Lupin spends his life carrying the burden of lycanthropy. Neville Longbottom grows up visiting parents who no longer recognize him. None of them emerge untouched. Their pain is real, yet their suffering deepens their capacity for loyalty, courage, and love rather than destroying it. Voldemort chooses a different path. Faced with fear, he turns inward. Faced with mortality, he seeks domination. Faced with loss, he refuses acceptance. This is why love functions as such a powerful force throughout the story. To Voldemort, love appears weak because it cannot be measured the way curses, armies, or magical artifacts can be measured. Yet Lily Potter's sacrifice accomplishes what the most advanced dark magic cannot. Narcissa Malfoy's love for Draco alters the outcome of a battle. Severus Snape's enduring love for Lily shapes decades of hidden choices. Molly Weasley's love drives her to stand between Bellatrix Lestrange and Ginny. Again and again, the forces Voldemort dismisses prove stronger than the forces he understands. The lesson is not sentimental, it is structural. In Rowling's world, love is not merely an emotion, it is a form of truth about what human beings are meant to value. The Horcruxes themselves reveal this truth through irony. Voldemort creates them to preserve his life, yet each one preserves only a smaller and more damaged version of himself. The diary remembers a clever student but not wisdom. The locket remembers pride but not affection. The fragments endure, but they do not grow, they do not heal, they do not become more human with time. Meanwhile, Harry, who never seeks immortality at all, leaves a lasting mark on countless lives simply through the choices he makes. One path seeks permanence through possession, the other achieves it through connection. And so, as the story finally settles into silence, you find yourself back where it began. Deep beneath stone, a lone candle still burns beside forbidden pages. The air remains cool. Dust rests undisturbed upon ancient bindings. Somewhere in the darkness lies the knowledge that tempted Herpo the Foul, fascinated Tom Riddle, and frightened generations of wiser witches and wizards. Yet the room feels different now. The secret no longer seems to concern immortality. It concerns fear. The flame flickers softly against the old stone walls, and in that quiet light, you can almost see the lesson hidden there all along. Death was never the darkest thing in the chamber. The darkest thing was the choice to abandon part of your soul in order to escape it.